Rain poured down over the alien slave market, turning the dirt road into dark mud. Chains clinked under the weight of dozens of prisoners. The smell of fear and wet metal hung in the air like a heavy blanket. Among them, a girl stood out, not because of beauty or status, but because of the way her eyes burned even in the cold rain. She had violet skin, hair tangled with dirt, and thin wrists rubbed raw by iron cuffs. The guards yanked her forward, treating her like a dangerous animal. They called her beast in their own language, but her gaze told another story. She had not forgotten who she was. The market was full of shouting voices, merchants selling cages of rare creatures from across the galaxy. Buyers in long robes moved from stall to stall, their jeweled eyes scanning for bargains. Most ignored her. She was too defiant, too wild. No one wanted trouble. That was until a figure appeared at the far end of the street, tall, broad-shouldered, and wrapped in a simple dark coat. His steps were steady, his eyes sharp, and unlike the others, he wasn't looking at the cages. He was looking at her. The guards noticed him. One barked in a harsh tone. "Stay back, human. This one bites." The man didn't slow down. His boot splashed through the mud as he came closer. When he reached her cage, he didn't glance at the price tag. He didn't look at the chains. He looked at her face, as if searching for something behind the defiance. And for the first time in months, she didn't look away. "What's her crime?" the human asked quietly. The merchant laughed, a deep, greedy laugh. "Crime? She's a war slave. Her people fought us and lost. She's dangerous. Tried to escape twice. But she's strong, could be useful, if you can control her." The human didn't answer right away. He reached for the bars and leaned slightly closer. "Do you understand me?" he asked her directly. His voice was calm, almost gentle. She didn't answer with words. She only stared, her lips trembling slightly in the rain. It had been so long since anyone spoke to her, and not about her. The merchant tapped the bars. 200 credits. Take her or leave her. The human didn't haggle. He pulled out a small chip, pressed it into the merchant's palm, and said, "Open the cage." The crowd around them went silent. Even the guards looked surprised. No one paid full price for a defiant slave. No one freed someone without inspecting them first. Yet this human had done it without hesitation. When the cage opened, the guard stepped forward, holding her chains. "Careful," one warned. "She'll run." The human didn't take the chains from them. Instead, he knelt in the mud, looking up at her. "You can walk on your own or you can stay here," he said, voice steady. "It's your choice." For a moment, she didn't move. Rain dripped down her face, mixing with the dirt on her cheeks. Everyone was watching. The crowd expected her to spit in his face, to lunge at him, or to bolt into the street. But she did none of those things. Slowly, she stepped out of the cage. The guards released the chains, muttering under their breath. She followed the human, unsure why she was doing it. Her instinct screamed not to trust anyone, least of all a human. But something about his voice pulled her forward. They walked through the muddy street in silence. People whispered as they passed. The word beast followed her like a shadow. Yet beside him, it felt quieter. After a while, she asked in a low voice, "Why?" "Because you don't belong in a cage," he said simply. She stopped walking, her chains clinking. "And what do I belong to then?" "You." He turned to face her, rain running down his coat. "No, you belong to yourself. But if you come with me, I'll help you stand again." Her throat tightened. No one had spoken to her like that since before the war. No one had looked at her as if she were still a person. She hated that his words stirred something inside her. Hope, fragile and dangerous. They reached the edge of the market, where his small ship waited. The hatch opened with a hiss. Warm light spilled out, chasing away the cold. She hesitated at the threshold. "Inside," he said. "No chains. No orders. Just food and shelter." She narrowed her eyes. "And if I refuse?" He shrugged. "Then I'll leave the door open and you can walk away. But I can't promise the next person you meet will treat you the same." For a long moment, she stood in the rain, torn between pride and survival. Then, with a quiet breath, she stepped inside. The door closed behind her. The hum of the engines replaced the shouts of the market. The smell of warm bread and clean air wrapped around her like a blanket. She glanced at him as he moved to the cockpit. "What's your name?" she asked. "Ethan," he said without turning. "And you?" She hesitated. "They call me Kira." "That's a good name," he replied. "It's yours. Don't let anyone take it from you." Kira sat in the corner, her mind spinning. She didn't know if she could trust him. She didn't know if this was another trick. But for the first time in a long time, she wasn't being dragged or beaten. The hum of the ship's engines grew louder as Ethan guided it away from the slave market. The rain-washed city faded beneath them, replaced by the endless black of space. Kira sat stiffly in the passenger seat, her chains resting on her lap. She didn't know if she should feel safe or trapped. Every sound of the ship felt strange. Every vibration made her wonder if this was just another cage with different walls. Ethan glanced at her but didn't speak. His eyes stayed focused on the stars ahead. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had been flying ships for years. She studied him from the corner of her eye, the firm set of his jaw, the small scars on his hands, the way he didn't stare at her like the others did. Finally, she broke the silence. "Where are you taking me?" "Away from them," he answered. "That's not an answer." He adjusted a control lever before turning to face her. "Do you want to go back?" Her eyes flashed. "No." "Then for now, that's all you need to know." She crossed her arms, the metal cuffs digging into her skin. "You talk like you know what's best for me." "I don't," he admitted. "But I know what it's like to be hunted, and I know what it's like to lose everything." The words hit her harder than she expected. Her people had been proud warriors once. They had stood against the invaders with every weapon they had. And yet, in the end, she was here, chained, sold, and carried away like stolen property. The silence returned, heavier this time. After a while, Ethan rose from the pilot's seat and disappeared into the small kitchen section of the ship. A few moments later, the smell of warm food filled the air. He came back with a plate and set it in front of her. She eyed it suspiciously. "Is this another test?" "It's food," he said simply. She hesitated, then picked up a piece with her bound hands. The first bite nearly broke her. She didn't mean to eat it so fast, but her body overruled her pride. She hadn't tasted anything fresh in months. When she finally stopped, she realized he was watching her, not with judgment, but with something like relief. "You've been starving," he said quietly. She swallowed hard. "What do you care?" "Because no one should live like that," he replied. She looked away. She didn't want to believe him, didn't want to think he might actually mean those words. It was easier to expect cruelty than kindness. Kindness was dangerous. It made you hope. Later, when the ship was on autopilot, Ethan walked over to her with a small tool. "I'm taking those chains off." She jerked back. "No." He frowned. "You don't want them off?" Her voice was sharp. "You think I've survived this long by letting strangers touch me?" He didn't argue. He set the tool on the table. "Then do it yourself when you're ready." Her eyes followed him as he walked away. The tool sat in front of her like a silent challenge. She could have taken it and freed herself right then, but her hands didn't move. The chains felt like part of her now, a cruel reminder of what she'd lost, but also the walls she'd built to keep everyone out. Hours passed before she finally picked up the tool. Her fingers trembled as she worked on the locks. The cuffs fell to the floor with a dull clink. She rubbed her wrists, the skin raw and bruised, and felt a strange emptiness where the weight used to be. She didn't thank him. She didn't have the words for it yet. That night, she didn't sleep. The ship's quiet hum made her restless. She sat by the window, watching stars slip past like silent witnesses. She wondered if her people were still alive somewhere. She wondered if they would even recognize her now. Ethan appeared, holding 2 mugs. He handed one to her. "It's just tea," he said. She took it without a word. The warmth seeped into her hands. "You're not used to silence, are you?" he asked. She shook her head. "Silence means someone's waiting for you to let your guard down." He leaned back in his chair. "Or it can mean you're safe." She almost laughed, but there was no humor in it, Safe? I haven't been safe since I was a child. He didn't argue. Instead, he looked at her the same way he had in the market, not as a prisoner. The stars outside were calm, but Ethan's eyes were fixed on the radar screen. A faint red had appeared an hour ago, far behind them. At first, it looked like background traffic, just another ship passing through the sector. But it didn't fade. It didn't turn away. It followed. Kira noticed his tense posture. What is it? He hesitated, then spoke without looking at her. We're being tracked. Her stomach tightened. By who? Could be slavers. Could be bounty hunters. Either way, they're not here to bring us flowers. Her mind raced. They'll want me back. They'll have to get through me first, he said flatly. She stared at him, searching for any hint of doubt, but his voice carried away a man who'd faced worse odds and lived to tell about it. Still, she wasn't used to anyone speaking as if her life was worth protecting. The dot on the radar grew closer. Ethan adjusted the ship's speed, weaving through asteroid fields to shake their tail. The maneuvering pushed her against her seat, the view outside turning into a blur of spinning rock and starlight. Kira gripped the armrest. You can't outrun them forever. I don't plan to, he said, pulling a lever that dimmed the ship's lights and powered down non-essential systems. We hide. The ship drifted into the shadow of a massive asteroid. The engines went quiet, and the cold silence of space settled in. They waited, watching the radar. Minutes passed. The red dot moved past them, then stopped. They know, Kira whispered. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then we fight. He moved to the weapons console, checking the ship's defenses. Kira's eyes darted around the cabin, heart pounding. She had fought before, on the ground, in desperate ambushes with nothing but a stolen blade. But this was different. This was space combat, and she was chained to a stranger's fate. The pursuing ship came into view, black, sharp-edged, and marked with the insignia of the Targash Syndicate. She knew that symbol all too well. It was the same group that had burned her village and taken her away. Her hands curled into fists. Ethan's gaze shifted to her. You're sure? I'd never forget. He nodded once, no hesitation. Then we end this. The Targash ship fired first, a burst of plasma that lit up the asteroid's edge. Ethan jerked the controls, spinning them out of the blast path. The deck shook under their feet. Kira's body pressed against the seat as the ship rolled and dove. Ethan's voice was calm but firm. Shields at 60%. Hold on. She didn't know whether to be terrified or impressed. His hands moved over controls like they were part of him, turning the small freighter into something far more dangerous than it looked. The second volley came, but Ethan cut power to one engine, letting the ship drop suddenly. The plasma bolts sailed harmlessly above them. With the enemy now in range, he fired back. Twin bursts of blue energy lanced out, slamming into the Targash ship's shields. The battle was fast, brutal, and silent except for the alarms and the sharp intake of their breaths. Kira's pulse thundered in her ears. Every blast reminded her of the night her world had fallen, when a hit rocked him hard enough to throw her from her seat. Ethan was already there, pulling her back up. You all right? She nodded, breathless. The Targash ship tried to flank them, but Ethan swung the freighter low, skimming the asteroid surface. At the last second, he pulled up sharply, causing the pursuing ship to clip the rock. Sparks erupted across its hull. That's it, Ethan muttered. He armed the rail cannon, a weapon far too powerful for a freighter, but clearly one he had installed for a reason. With a deep hum, the cannon fired. The projectile tore through the weakened enemy shields and punched into their engines. The Targash ship spun out of control, disappearing behind the asteroid in a trail of debris. The radar screen showed no more red dots. Silence. Kira realized she had been holding her breath. She looked at him, stunned. You could have run. You could have handed me over. Not my style, he said with a faint smirk. Besides, you said they took your people. I don't let men like that walk away. Something inside her cracked. The part that believed no one cared. The part that had kept her heart cold to survive. She didn't say thank you. The words felt too small for what he'd just done. But she met his gaze and held it. And in that silent exchange, something passed between them. An unspoken agreement that they were no longer just passenger and pilot. They were allies. Ethan leaned back in his chair. We can't stay here. If they were tracking us, others will come. Then where? She asked. He checked the star map. There's a safe station 2 jumps away. Friends of mine. They'll give us supplies. Friends. She tilted her head. You trust people that easily? He chuckled without humor. No, but these are people who fought beside me. That earns more than trust. She studied him. You fought in wars too, haven't you? His eyes darkened. More than I care to count. For a while, they sat in silence. The hum of the ship a reminder that they were still moving, still breathing. Kira didn't know what the future held. But for the first time since her capture, she felt like the chains were gone not just from her wrists, but from her spirit. And she realized something else. Whoever this human was, he wasn't saving her out of pity. He was saving her because he believed she deserved to be free. And that made her want to fight again. A massive, ring-shaped structure glowing with soft blue lights. Cargo ships drifted in and out of the docking bays. To Kira, it looked like a floating city in the middle of nowhere. That's Haven 9, Ethan said. If there's a place in this sector that won't turn you over for a handful of credits, it's here. Kira narrowed her eyes. You sound sure. I've been here before. I trust the people running it. Her chest tightened at the word trust. She wasn't sure she even remembered what that felt like. They approached the docking bay. The automated doors opened, letting them glide inside. The station's artificial gravity pulled gently on her body, a strange reminder that they were stepping into someone else's territory. When the ship settled, Ethan rose and grabbed his coat. Stay close. This place is safe, but only if you're careful. Kira followed him down the ramp, her eyes scanning the hangar. Mechanics worked on ships, sparks flying from repair tools. Merchants pushed carts stacked with crates. The air smelled faintly of oil and spice. A tall woman in a dark flight suit approached. She had sharp features, silver hair tied back, and the kind of confidence that came from surviving too many close calls. Ethan. She smiled faintly. Didn't think I'd see you again. Lyra. Ethan greeted her with a nod. I need supplies and a quiet corner for a few days. Her gaze shifted to Kira, lingering a little too long. And who's this? Kira stiffened under the scrutiny, but Ethan's voice was calm. A friend. Lyra's eyebrow lifted, but she didn't push. You'll get your supplies. Follow me. They walked through the station's winding corridors, passing rows of market stalls and noisy cantinas. The air buzzed with alien voices speaking a dozen different languages. Kira kept close to Ethan, feeling the weight of curious eyes on her. She could hear the whispers. Some recognized her species. Others simply wondered what a girl like her was doing here with a human. Finally, Lyra led them into a quiet back room. You can stay here. No one will bother you. Ethan nodded in thanks. I'll pay for the supplies. Keep it discreet. She smirked. When have I ever not been discreet? After Lyra left, Kira sat on the small cot in the corner. You trust her? Enough to rest here, Ethan replied. But we won't stay long. Something in his tone told her he wasn't entirely at ease either. That night, the hum of the station replaced the quiet of the ship. Kira tried to sleep, but her instincts kept her awake. She had learned to listen to that feeling, the one that warned her when the air shifted just before trouble arrived. The trouble came sooner than expected. A faint click echoed outside the door. Not the sound of someone passing, but of someone unlocking it. She was on her feet instantly. Ethan! The door slid open and 2 figures stepped inside. Both wore black armor, faces hidden behind tinted visors. The insignia on their shoulders made Kira's blood run cold. Targash Syndicate. The first one spoke in a low, distorted voice. We'll make this easy. Come with us, girl. Ethan was already moving. His hand shot to the blaster at his hip, but the second figure lunged. The room exploded into chaos, fists, shouts, and the metallic clang of bodies hitting the walls. Kira grabbed the nearest object, a metal pipe, and swung it hard at the first attacker. It connected with his helmet, sending him stumbling. Run! Ethan barked, but she didn't run. She stayed, swinging the pipe again as Ethan took down the second attacker with a sharp strike to the throat. The first one recovered fast, grabbing Kira by the arm. Pain shot through her as he tried to drag her toward the door. Ethan's voice was a growl. Let her go. The man didn't. Ethan's fist crashed into the side of the helmet, cracking it. The man fell, and Ethan didn't wait for him to get up. He pulled Kira toward the corridor. We have to leave. Now. They sprinted through the station, alarms blaring as more syndicate members appeared from the shadows. Ethan fired over his shoulder, guiding Kira through narrow passages until they reached the docking bay. By the time they reached the ship, the station was in chaos. Syndicate gunfire rattled off the hull as they rushed up the ramp. Ethan slammed the hatch shut and powered the engines. As the ship lifted off, Kira collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, her chest heaving. Your safe place, she said between breaths. It's not so safe. Ethan's jaw was tight. It was once, but the syndicate's reach is longer than I thought. She looked at him, her voice quieter now. You could still leave me. They wouldn't follow you if I was gone. He met her gaze, his eyes like steel. I don't abandon my crew. She blinked. Crew? Yeah, he said, turning back to the controls. That's what you are now, so get used to it. Her chest tightened at the words. Crew, not cargo, not a prisoner, not a beast. And for the first time, she thought maybe, just maybe, she had a place to belong again. The ship roared through space, but the syndicate wasn't far behind. Red blips filled the radar, multiplying by the minute. Kira gripped the edge of her seat as the stars outside twisted into long streaks. Ethan's hands flew over the controls, dodging incoming fire. They're not giving up, she said, her voice tight. They won't, Ethan replied. Not until they think you're back in chains. Her jaw clenched. Then maybe it's time they learn I'm not easy to chain. He glanced at her briefly. You're thinking of fighting? I'm done hiding. The word surprised even her. For weeks, months, she had been in survival mode. Run. Hide. Endure. But something about the way Ethan refused to abandon her had lit a fire she thought had gone out. Ethan didn't argue. Instead, he tapped the control, opening a hidden weapons panel on her side of the cockpit. Then you'd better learn fast. Grab that targeting stick. I'll fly. You shoot. Her pulse quickened. She wrapped her hands around the control, its surface warm from the ship's systems. The first enemy ship closed in, firing a barrage of plasma bolts. Ethan twisted the freighter sharply, and the shots missed by inches. Lock on and fire. Kira pressed the trigger. Blue energy lands from their cannons, striking the attacker's wing. The enemy ship spun out of formation, trailing smoke. A rush of adrenaline surged through her. Got one. Don't get cocky, Ethan warned, rolling the ship to avoid another blast. Two more syndicate fighters moved in from the sides, trying to box them in. Kira tracked one, her hand shaking. She squeezed the trigger, but the shot went wide. Breathe. Ethan said calmly, even as alarms blared. Focus. Don't rush. Make it count. She exhaled slowly, tracking the enemy until the targeting reticle flashed red. Then she fired. The bolt hit dead center, tearing through the enemy ship's cockpit. Ethan grinned. Nice. The celebration didn't last. More blips appeared on the radar, bigger ones. Kira's eyes widened. That's a cruiser. The syndicate cruiser emerged from the darkness, a massive shape bristling with cannons. Its shadow swallowed the stars around it. They're bringing in the big guns, Ethan muttered. We can't take it head on. Kira's heart pounded. Then what? Then we get creative. He dove toward a nearby asteroid field, weaving between spinning rocks the size of houses. The cruiser followed, its smaller fighters swarming in. Kira fired at any that came too close, the ship vibrating with each blast. Chunks of rock scraped their hull as Ethan pushed deeper into the field. If we can get close enough, he said, we can use the asteroids as cover and slip behind them. The plan was risky. One wrong move and they'd smash into rock. But the alternative, facing the cruiser in open space, was suicide. Kira spotted 2 fighters closing from the rear. I can get them. Do it. She waited until they lined up in her sights, then fired 2 quick bursts. Both ships exploded in bright flashes, lighting up the asteroids like brief suns. The cruiser fired a massive energy blast that ripped through the asteroid field, shattering rocks into deadly fragments. Ethan rolled hard to avoid them, the ship groaning under the strain. Almost there, he said. Kira's eyes locked on the massive shape of the cruiser. Its rear engines glowed faintly. An idea struck her. What if we don't just slip past them? Ethan's voice was wary. What are you thinking? She pointed. We hit their engines. That would cripple them, he admitted. But it's dangerous as hell. They won't expect it. You said I'm crew now. Let me prove it. He hesitated for only a second before nodding. Hold on. The ship dove under the cruiser's main body, so close that the hull scraped against its metal underbelly. Kira's targeting display lit up as the engine cores came into view. Fire when ready. She locked on and fired 3 consecutive shots. The first 2 dented the armor, but the third pierced through. The engine erupted in a chain of explosions that shook even their own ship. The cruiser's lights flickered, its weapons falling silent. Fighters broke formation, retreating in all directions. They're falling back, Ethan said with satisfaction. Kira leaned back in her seat, breathing hard. Her hands were still trembling, but not from fear this time. You did good, Ethan said. She looked at him and, for the first time since meeting him, smiled without hesitation. We did good. The adrenaline slowly faded, replaced by a heavy exhaustion. But deep inside, she felt something stronger than fatigue. A sense of pride she hadn't felt since before the war. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was fighting back. And she knew this was only the beginning. The stars were calm again, but Ethan didn't relax. He kept the ship on a steady course toward a small outpost hidden inside a nebula. According to him, it was a refueling point run by old allies, smugglers, traders, and people who owed him favors. Kira sat in the co-pilot seat, her eyes still scanning the radar. Even though the syndicate ships were gone, she couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was still behind them. This place we're going, she asked. Can we really trust them? Ethan didn't look at her. We can trust some. Not all. That's why you stay close and keep your eyes open. The nebula came into view, a swirling cloud of gold and red gas that glowed softly against the darkness of space. The outpost itself was hidden until they were almost on top of it. A small cluster of metal platforms connected by narrow bridges, anchored to a massive rock inside the gas cloud. The docking bay doors opened and the ship glided inside. The airlock hissed as they stepped out onto the platform. The smell here was different. A mix of fuel, metal, and something spicy cooking in the distance. A man was waiting for them at the end of the walkway. He was tall, with a thick beard and a wide smile. Ethan, he called out. I thought the syndicate finally got you. Ethan grinned faintly. Not today, Rask. Rask's eyes shifted to Kira. And who's this? A friend, Ethan said simply. Rask's smile widened, but something in it felt off. Any friend of yours is welcome here. Come on, let's get you inside. The main hall was dimly lit, filled with a mix of humans and aliens talking in low voices. Some looked like traders, others like mercenaries. All of them glanced at Kira as she passed. She kept her chin high, refusing to look away. Rask led them to a table in the corner. Sit, I'll get us drinks. When he walked away, Kira leaned closer to Ethan. I don't like him. Ethan smirked. You don't like anyone. I mean it. He's hiding something. Ethan's eyes softened, but his voice stayed calm. I'll keep that in mind. The drinks arrived, and Rask sat down across from them. So, Ethan, what brings you all the way out here? Fuel, supplies, a place to lay low. Rask nodded slowly. You'll have them. But, he glanced at Kira again. The girl, you know she's got a price on her head, right? Kira's grip tightened on her cup. So that's what this is. Ethan's eyes narrowed. What are you saying, Rask? Rask leaned back, his smile returning. I'm saying I could make your syndicate problem disappear. Hand her over, and they'll forget about you, Both of you could walk away free. The table went silent. Kira stared at him, feeling the old chains wrapping around her mind. She had heard these words before, from merchants, guards, even strangers who pretended to be kind. Ethan stood slowly. I'm going to pretend you didn't just say that. Rask chuckled. Think about it. You're not stupid, Ethan. You got a small ship, limited fuel, no backup. You can't protect her forever. One day, the Syndicate will catch you both, and then... Ethan's fist hit the table hard enough to rattle the cups. That day's not today. Before Rask could reply, Kira noticed something. 2 armed men moving toward them from the far side of the room. Ethan, she warned. He turned just as the first man drew his weapon. In one motion, Ethan flipped the table for cover, pulling Kira down behind it. Blaster fire lit up the room, shouts breaking out as patrons scrambled for the exits. Rask's voice rang out. Don't let them get to the ship. It was clear now. Rask had set them up. Ethan fired back, taking down one of the gunmen. We're leaving. They moved fast, weaving through the chaos toward the docking bay. More of Rask's men appeared, blocking the walkway. Kira grabbed a dropped weapon from the floor and fired, her hand steady despite her pounding heart. 2 attackers fell, clearing their path. They reached the ship, slamming the hatch shut as blaster bolts scorched the hull. Ethan jumped into the pilot's seat, firing the engines. The outpost's docking doors began to close, but Ethan pushed the throttle to full. The ship blasted forward, scraping through the narrowing gap. Behind them, the outpost faded into the swirling colors of the nebula. Kira dropped into her seat, breathing hard. You were right about staying close. Ethan glanced at her, his jaw still tight. You were right about him. I should have listened. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Kira said quietly, You could have traded me for your safety. Why didn't you? Ethan's voice was steady. Because you're not a bounty. You're my crew, and I don't sell my crew. The words sank into her like heat on frozen skin. She didn't know if she deserved that loyalty, but she knew one thing. She wasn't going to let it go to waste. She turned to face him fully. Then let's stop running. Let's make the Syndicate regret ever putting a chain on me. Ethan's eyes met hers, and for the first time, there was no hesitation in either of them. Then the ship's engines hummed like a low growl, cutting through the silence in the cockpit. Kira sat beside Ethan, her gaze fixed on the holomap projected between them. The Syndicate's network of outposts glowed red, each one a reminder of the pain they had caused her people. Ethan pointed to a smaller dot near the edge of Syndicate territory. That's a fuel relay station. Not heavily guarded, but vital. If we take it out, we'll hurt their supply lines. Kira studied the map. We could hit it before they even know we're there. That's the plan, Ethan said. Quick in, quick out. Kira leaned back, crossing her arms. And after, we keep hitting them. Ethan glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. If you're up for it. She didn't hesitate. I'm up for it. For the next hour, they prepared. Ethan loaded extra power cells for the ship's weapons. Kira checked the small arms locker, choosing a compact blaster and a blade that fit comfortably in her grip. She tested the balance of the blade with quick movements, the muscle memory of her old training coming back. Ethan noticed. You've done this before. She nodded. Before the chains, I fought for my people. I wasn't the strongest, but I never ran from a fight. Ethan's voice was steady. Then today, you're fighting for more than survival. You're fighting to take back what's yours. Those words stayed with her as they dropped out of hyperspace near the relay station. The structure was small but heavily built, clinging to the side of an asteroid. A few patrol ships floated nearby, their movements slow and lazy. They're not expecting trouble, Ethan said, lining up their approach. Kira's eyes narrowed. Then let's surprise them. The ship accelerated, weapons primed. The first patrol ship didn't even have time to raise shields before Ethan's cannons tore through its hull. The second tried to respond but was caught in Kira's precise shot, a bolt straight to its engines. Ethan smirked. Nice shooting. They swooped down toward the docking bay. The ship landed hard, the ramp lowering before the dust even settled. Ethan and Kira ran down together, weapons ready. inside the station. Syndicate guards scrambled, caught off guard by the sudden assault. Kira moved fast, ducking behind cover and firing control bursts. Ethan advanced alongside her, his blaster steady and accurate. A guard lunged at Kira from the side. She reacted without thinking, swinging her blade in a clean arc that sent him sprawling. For a moment, she froze, not from fear, but from the rush of reclaiming a skill they had tried to take from her. "Keep moving," Ethan called. They reached the control room. Kira moved to the terminal, using a device Ethan had given her. "Plug this in and start the overload sequence," he instructed. Her fingers worked quickly. The device's lights blinked faster as the station's power systems began to spike. An alarm wailed. Over the speakers, a distorted voice shouted, "Intruders! Secure the station." The hallway outside filled with syndicate reinforcements. Kira turned to face them, her blaster in one hand, blade in the other. Ethan took position beside her. "Ready?" he asked. She smiled, a sharp, fearless smile. "Always." The fight was fierce. Blaster bolts lit the narrow hallways, sparks flying from damaged panels. Kira moved like she had never been chained, her strikes precise and fluid. She felt alive, dangerous, herself again. One guard managed to push past, raising his weapon at Ethan's back. Without thinking, Kira stepped in front, blocking the shot with her blade and driving her blaster into the attacker's chest. Ethan glanced at her. "You saved my life." She grinned. "We're crew, remember?" With the last of the guards down, the overload device let out a sharp tone. "We got 30 seconds." Ethan shouted. They sprinted back to the ship. Behind them, the relay station began to tremble, lights flickering as the overload reached its peak. The ramp closed just as the engines roared to life. Ethan pushed the throttle, and the ship shot away from the asteroid. Seconds later, the station exploded in a burst of fire and debris, scattering pieces into the nebula. Kira watched the destruction through the viewport, her chest rising and falling with adrenaline. "That's one." Ethan nodded. "And there will be more." For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the steady hum of the ship as they moved away from a blast. Finally, Kira said quietly, "Thank you." "For what?" Ethan asked. "For not letting me stay the person they made me. For giving me a reason to fight again." Ethan's voice was calm, but there was a weight behind it. "You never stopped being that person. You just needed someone to remind you." She looked out at the stars, feeling a strength inside her she thought she had lost forever. The Syndicate had taken much from her, but now, with Ethan at her side, she was ready to take it all back, piece by piece. The glow of the destroyed relay station was still fading behind them when Ethan received a message. It wasn't on any public channel. It came through a scrambled signal, one only Syndicate operatives used. Kira stood beside him, arms crossed. "What is it?" Ethan's eyes narrowed as he read the text. "A truce, or so they claim. They want to meet. Unarmed. Neutral ground." She laughed bitterly. "Neutral? That's a word they've never understood." Ethan leaned back in his chair. "I know it's a trap, but it's also a chance to find out how much we've rattled them." Kira hesitated. Every instinct told her to refuse. But another voice, the one that had been growing louder since she started fighting back, said this was her chance. "Where's the meeting?" she asked. "A derelict cargo platform near the edge of their territory. Empty, according to scans." Kira's jaw tightened. "We go. But if it's who I think it is, I'm not leaving without answers." Ethan met her gaze. "You think it's him?" "I know it's him." Him, the one who had ordered her capture, the one who had stood on the burning soil of her home and told her she would spend her life in chains. Commander Vark. The cargo platform floated in the dark, a rusting skeleton against the stars. Their ship docked with soft thud. The air inside was cold and stale, the sound of their boots echoing through empty corridors. They reached the main bay. A single light flickered above, casting long shadows across the metal floor. And there he was, Commander Vark, tall, broad, and wrapped in black armor. His eyes, cold and pale, locked on Kira the moment she stepped into the light. A slow, cruel smile spread across his face. So the beast still breathes, he said in a voice that made her skin crawl. And she's brought a pet human. Ethan took a step forward, but Kira's hand shot out, stopping him. No, he's mine. Vark chuckled. You always did a spirit. It was amusing at first. But now you become a problem. Kira's voice was steady, but her hands curled into fists. You took everything from me. My family, my people, my name. I gave you a new name, Vark said, his tone mocking. Beast. Fitting, don't you think? Ethan's voice was like steel. You should start worrying less about names and more about breathing. Vark tilted his head, pretending to think. Oh, I'm not worried, because while we've been talking, my ships have surrounded yours. Ethan's jaw tightened. He tapped his comm. Ship status? The AI's voice came back. Multiple Syndicate vessels detected. Docking clamps engaged. Kira stepped forward, her eyes locked on Vark. Let them come. I'm done running. His smile faded slightly. You think you can fight your way out? She didn't answer with words. She lunged. Vark moved fast for his size, blocking her strike and shoving her back. Ethan drew his blaster, firing at the shadows where Syndicate soldiers began to pour into the bay. The air filled with the hiss of energy bolts and the clang of boots on metal. Kira's blade flashed in the dim light as she weaved through the chaos. Every strike, every movement was fueled by years of rage. She wasn't fighting just to survive. She was fighting to take back what he had stolen. Vark countered each blow with brutal strength, his gauntlet sparking against her blade. You've improved, he said between strikes. But not enough. She gritted her teeth. We'll see. Ethan covered her, dropping Syndicate soldiers with precise shots. But more kept coming, their armor dark and faceless. Then Kira saw her chance, a small gap in Vark's stance. She stepped in and drove her blade toward his side. He twisted just in time, the blade grazing his armor instead of piercing it. He grabbed her wrist, yanking her forward until they were face to face. You should have stayed in your cage. Her other hand came up, gripping the small blaster she had kept hidden. She fired point blank into his shoulder. The blast knocked him back, his armor smoking. Ethan was already moving toward her. We need to go. Kira's breathing was ragged, but her eyes never left Vark as Syndicate soldiers pulled him up. This isn't over, she said. His cold smile returned, even through the pain. No, it's only beginning. They fought their way back to the ship. Ethan blasted the docking clamps free, while Kira covered the hatch. Once inside, the engines roared to life. The ship tore away from platform, weaving through enemy fire until the stars swallowed their pursuers. Kira sank into her seat, her hands trembling. Ethan glanced at her. You did well. She shook her head. Not well enough. He's still out there. Ethan's voice was the ship floated in the shadow of a dead moon, its engine silent to avoid detection. Kira stood at the central table, staring at the holomap Ethan had projected. The image showed the Syndicate patrol routes, marked in glowing red lines. At the center was one blinking Commander Vark's personal cruiser. Ethan leaned against the table, arms crossed. He's moving between Syndicate outposts, probably rallying forces after we hit that relay station. We know his route, and we know where he'll be in 2 days. Kira's voice was cold. Then we intercept him. Ethan's eyes narrowed. It's not that simple. His cruiser's a fortress. We can't just fly in and expect to win. Then we don't attack the cruiser, she said, tapping a point on the map. We make him come to us. Ethan studied the point she'd chosen, a narrow asteroid pass between 2 trade lanes. Few ships went there because of the unstable debris field. But it also had something else. No way out except the way you came in. We bait him, Ethan said slowly. Kira nodded. Word spreads fast in the Syndicate. If they think you've been injured and I've gone rogue, Vark will come himself to drag me back in chains. Ethan smirked faintly. Dangerous plan. She met his gaze. Everything worth doing is... The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. Ethan adjusted the ship's heat signature to appear damaged, even adding false scorch marks to the hull. Kira practiced close combat drills, focusing on speed over brute force. When the time came, they drifted into the asteroid pass and cut the engines, letting the debris field hide them. "This is it," Ethan said quietly. "Once we start, there's no turning back." Kira's grip tightened on her blade. "I don't want to turn back." The wait was long. Hours passed in silence, the cold metal walls of the ship amplifying every sound. Then the radar beeped, a large contact entering the field. Ethan checked the readout. "It's him." Through the viewport, the massive shape of Vark's cruiser emerged from the drifting rocks. Its dark hull seemed to swallow the starlight. Smaller escort ships flanked it like predators. A transmission came through, Vark's voice filling the cockpit. "I see you made it easy for me, beast. No chains this time. I'll just drag you back myself." Kira didn't answer. She looked at Ethan. "Let's do this." The first phase of the plan went smoothly. Ethan powered up the engines just enough to look like they were trying to flee. As expected, Vark ordered his escorts to block their path. The smaller ships moved in, boxing them into the narrowest part of the pass. That was when Ethan triggered the mines. They weren't military grade, just old asteroid miners modified to detonate on proximity. But in confined space, they were devastating. 2 escort ships vanished in bursts of fire and debris. The rest scattered, leaving the cruiser momentarily exposed. Kira and Ethan used that moment to close the distance, slipping their ship under the cruiser's lower decks and docking with one of its maintenance hatches. The hatch hissed open, and they moved inside. The corridors were dim, the sound of distant alarms echoing through the metal walls. Kira led the way, her blade drawn. Ethan covered her with his blaster. Every step brought them closer to the command deck, and to Vark. They encountered resistance halfway there. Syndicate soldiers poured into the hall, blasters firing. Kira moved like lightning, weaving between shots and striking with precision. Ethan's aim was flawless, dropping enemies before they could flank them. Finally, they reached the heavy doors of the command deck. Kira pressed the override control, and the doors slid open with a hiss. Vark was waiting. He stood at the far end of the room, hands clasped behind his back, as if he had known they were coming. "You walked right into my ship," he said, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "I should thank you." Kira stepped forward, blade raised. "You won't be thanking me when I'm done." Vark smirked, still so defiant. "That's why you were my favorite prisoner." Ethan moved to her side. "Then you're about to lose your favorite." The fight was brutal from the start. Vark was stronger than she remembered, his armor reinforced, his strikes heavy enough to jar her arms. But Kira was faster now, her movements fueled by months of regained strength and the fire of vengeance. Ethan circled, keeping the syndicate guards from interfering. Blaster shots rang out, echoing against the steel walls. Kira and Vark's blades clashed again and again, sparks flying. He tried to overpower her, forcing her back step by step, but she refused to give ground. "You can't win," Vark snarled. "I already am," she shot back, driving him toward the viewport. He swung hard, but she ducked, sliding past him and delivering a slash across the side. His armor took most of it, but the force staggered him. For the first time, she saw something in his eyes she had never seen before: doubt. She raised her blade again, but before she could strike, he hit a control on his wrist. Smoke flooded the room, blinding her. When it cleared, Vark was gone, the emergency hatch on the far wall still swinging open. Ethan cursed under his breath. He ran. Kira's breathing was ragged, her blade still ready. "Next time, you won't." They retreated quickly, knowing the cruiser's reinforcements would be on them any second. Once back on their ship, Ethan punched the engines, weaving through the debris field until stars opened around them. Kira stared at the empty black ahead. "He's not just a commander to me, Ethan. He's a chain I haven't broken yet." Ethan glanced at her. "Then we break it." She nodded slowly, her voice quiet but certain. "We will." 3 days after the failed trap, Kira hadn't slept. She spent hours in the cockpit, staring at the stars, replaying every second of her fight with Vark. The way he had smiled, the way he had escaped, the way her blade had almost ended him. Ethan found her there, leaning against the viewport. "You're going to burn yourself out," he said quietly. Her voice was low but steady. "I'm not stopping until it's finished." He studied her for a long moment. "Then let's finish it." She turned to him, surprised. "I've been tracking him," Ethan said, bringing up the holo map. "He's regrouping at a high-security syndicate fortress. It's not a ship this time. It's a base. Heavy defenses. No easy way in." Kira's jaw tightened. "Then we make a hard way in." The fortress floated in orbit around a red dwarf star, its walls bristling with turrets. A massive shield dome covered it like a second skin. Any sane person would have called it impossible to breach. But Ethan wasn't sane when it came to protecting his crew. They approached under the cover of a disguised cargo hauler. Ethan had traded favors to get the ship and forged delivery codes for a shipment of rare alloys. Exactly the kind of thing Vark's base would welcome. When the docking clamps locked on, Kira's pulse pounded in her ears. This was it. They stepped off the hauler in stolen syndicate armor, moving through the fortress corridors without raising suspicion. The air was hot and heavy, the lighting dim. Ethan led the way to the command level. The disguise got them past 2 checkpoints, but at the third, a guard's eyes lingered too long on Kira. "You," he said, stepping forward. "Helmet off." Kira's hand twitched toward her weapon. But Ethan moved first, driving an elbow into the guard's throat. The man collapsed before he could shout. The alarm began to wail. "So much for subtle," Ethan muttered. They ran, weapons drawn. Syndicate soldiers poured into the corridors, but Kira was faster, cutting through them with precise, furious strikes. Ethan's blaster cleared their path, every shot aimed to kill. They burst into the command chamber, and there he was. Vark. He stood at the far end of the room, his armor repaired, his stance ready. His cold smile was gone this time. His eyes burned with anger. "You keep chasing me, beast," he growled. "Do you really want to die that badly?" Kira stepped forward, her voice like steel. "I didn't come here to die. I came to end you." The fight began instantly. Their blades met with a sharp crack, the force of each strike sending vibrations up her arms. Vark was stronger, but Kira was faster, slipping past his guard to score shallow cuts his armor. Ethan took on the guards that tried to intervene, his blaster echoing through the chamber. "You were nothing before I chained you," Vark spat, swinging hard. Kira blocked, her muscles straining. "I was everything before you, and I'll be everything after you're gone." She pressed forward, each strike pushing him back. Sparks flew as metal clashed against metal. Vark tried to grab her wrist again, the same move he'd used in their last fight, but this time she twisted free and slammed her elbow into his jaw. The blow staggered him, and she moved in for the kill. His blade came up to block, but she feinted, spinning low and slicing through the joint in his armor at the knee. He dropped to one side, roaring in pain. Kira didn't hesitate. She stepped in and drove her blade into the gap between his chest plates. The weapon sank deep, and his breath caught in a sharp gasp. For the first time, his eyes weren't cold, they were afraid. She leaned close. "This is for my people." With one final pull, she wrenched the blade free. Vark collapsed, the life draining from him. Silence fell over the chamber. The remaining guards froze, their leader lying dead at Kira's feet. Ethan stepped forward, blaster still ready. Anyone else want to try their luck? No one moved. They left the fortress together, alarms still blaring, but no one daring to stop them. Once aboard the ship, Ethan launched them into space, the burning fortress shrinking behind them. Kira sat in the co-pilot's seat, staring at her hands. They were steady now. No tremble, no fear. Ethan glanced at her. "It's done." She nodded slowly. "The last chain is gone." For a long moment, they sat in silence, the stars stretching out before them. Then Kira smiled, not the hard, guarded smile she had worn before, but something warmer. "Where to next, Captain?" Ethan grinned. "Anywhere we want, crew." She looked out at the endless sky, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Not just freedom, not just safety, belonging. And she knew that from this day forward, no one, not the Syndicate, not any enemy in the galaxy, would ever put her in chains again.